Hi, there's a very cute little game on the AppLab website. If you're on AppLab site, then you can scroll down and there's a PokeThePig project. So let's try to make this a little bit more interesting. So if you click on it, you will see the whole app. You might have to log in before I was already logged in. So this game, basically, if you start it, you can click the pig and it runs and it counts basically how often you poke the pig. And after 10 seconds it will stop and tell you how often you poke the pig. Okay, now that is not very difficult. So what I would like to do is to resize the pig, make it a bit smaller and let it appear on different places on the screen. So it basically keeps changing and you have to quickly click on that pig at the right location. So in order to do so, let's first just have a look at the current code. So currently there is a variable here called score, and that is basically the count for the how often the user pokes a pig. So originally it's set to 0. And then there comes the set timeout function. So what happens here is that when these 10,000 milliseconds, so these are in milliseconds, so basically 10 seconds have passed, then this code inside the set timeout function will be executed. So that means we set some label, and that is on the other screen. Yeah, it's a game over screen. So let's go to design, and there's a game over screen, and here is the score label. Okay, so it's set to the actual score, and then the game over screen is displayed. Okay, so what else is missing is when the pig is clicked. Let me just move back to the main screen and to the code. So when the mouse is clicked, or basically down on top of that pig, then that grunting sound is played and the pig is resized. It's made a little bit smaller than it originally is. If you go to design mode, then you see the pig is 360 pixels wide and 325 pixels high. So in the code we make this a little bit smaller. And then when the mouse is gone, so the mouse is up again, then the pig is resized to the original size. Now I don't want to have this resize code because I just want to make the pig a little smaller and not resize it during the game. So let me just remove this, and also here this individual instruction that makes the pig small. Okay, so instead we're gonna make our pig a little smaller. So let's see if we make it half the size. So 360 divided by 2 is 180, and let's make the height correspondingly. Let's say like that. Let's make it a little bit more, let's make it smaller, so let's say 90, and here 81. Yeah, that is good. Okay, so now I just made the pig smaller, but now I want the pig to move to a random location. So let me write a function for that one. So, and I change here this comment, move the pig to a random location. Okay, so write a function. We don't need parameters, so the first one works, and I call this move the pig. Okay, so to move a image, we can go to UI controls, and that means we have to change the position. Set position, here we go. Okay, so we want to change the position of that pig image, and if you hover over it, you see here, well, wrong one. The first is here the pig ID, then comes the X and Y coordinate, and then here the width and height of our image. I want to keep the width and height, so if we go back here, there was 90 and 81, so I don't want to change this. So I put here also 90 and 81. Okay, so here I can put an x coordinate and y coordinates. For example, I could put here 5 or here 100. But I want the position of the pig change, so I would just want to pick a random position. So what I'm going to do is I create two variables, one for the x coordinate and one for the y coordinate, and then we're going to assign a random value to it. So in order to generate a random value, we go to the math functions, math tab here, and there is random number. Okay, now I have to plug in two values here, and that is basically the range in which my random number is. So now I have to check which x values would make sense. Okay, so let's go to this design. Okay, and if I select this pig, you can see it shows the x and y coordinates. You can also see it back here, but also here. So let's see, for x, if I go to the leftmost position, it would be 0, and the rightmost position is 230. Okay, let's go back to the code. So here my x coordinate should be a value between 0 and we set 230. Okay, alright, let's do the same game for the y coordinate, and let's go back to the design and see which y coordinates would make sense. Let's say here the highest I want my pig to pop up, so that would be 60 for the y coordinate, and the lowest, let's say 365. Okay, so back to code. So we set 60 and 365. Okay, now if I run my app, nothing's really gonna happen other than before. I can poke the pig and it grunts, and after 10 seconds it's gonna display the score. So it didn't reposition my pig, because this function actually is never really called, it's not used anywhere. So I want to call this function every second, so every second the pig is moved to a different position. So how am I going to do that? And we have to go back to controls, and there is set interval. Okay, so that will accomplish exactly what I want to do. And let's add some comment. Let's see, let me just copy and paste the comment line, and yep. So let's say move the pig every second. Move the pig every second. Okay, so the set interval function makes sure that after this duration he has elapsed, and that's again in milliseconds. So every 1,000 milliseconds, that is exactly 1 second, and that's what I want, so I keep this. So every second I'm going to call the move pig function. So how do I call this function? We go back to the functions here, and here is the block that calls a function. I have to plug in the proper name. My function name is move the pig, and make sure capitalization is exactly as you call the function. Okay, now let's try and see what happens if I run this. And the pig moves only once. That's not what I wanted. So let's see why we only move the pig once and not every second. Well, the problem is here that we actually fixed the position of the pig always to 5 for the x coordinate and 100 for the y coordinate. We actually didn't put in this variable value, so I have to replace this by x and this by the variable value y, whatever this random number function here returns, and sets y to. So let's try and see, and that fixed the problem. So now you can see the pig moves randomly on the screen, and then after 10 seconds, yep, then it displays again our result. Okay, so you can once try to do those changes on your own. And there are also many ways to further improve this. For example, you can play around and make the time faster. So maybe if I do this just every half second, move the pig, then the game's gonna be much faster. And it's not that easy, and I think that's too fast for me. Okay. What also would be nice to add another screen in the beginning, and where you have a button to start the actual game. So there are many variations you can think of to improve this little game. One thing you also want to do is probably to rename this. So I just call this Anya Poke the Pig, so I know that was my version of Poke the Pig. Anya's Poke the Pig. Okay, and I save this here. As always, you can also share your application, or you can copy this link, and then you could actually directly post it in any web browser, and it can be on a desktop computer, a laptop, or a smartphone, and then you can play this game.